¿Qué pasa to the pack? It is Pack here. As I've spoken about in previous videos, NBA 2K Era's Quick Play has been added into the game. It's essentially historic teams from different eras are added to play Quick Play against your friends. Now, this is awesome, but it could be a little overwhelming. There are 80 brand new teams added to play with in NBA 2K. So obviously, you're not really sure who to use. So I got you. Here are 20 teams that I personally believe are so good that you should try out. They're not in any specific order. I'm just gonna go through all of them equally that I think are really awesome. If you like that kind of content when it comes to NBA 2K teams, rosters, players, ratings, all that kind of stuff, please join the pack and subscribe. Let's get it, man. I do have a honorable mention to start off the video, and that is going to be the 1991 Kings. This team is not necessarily good, so to be completely fair, I wouldn't suggest you using them for sure, but the idea of Spud Webb being one of the best players on a team does sound like that'd be pretty damn fun. I mean, just trying to dunk on anybody possible with Spud Webb, it seems like a good time. But besides that, there's not really anyone on this team that I would be like, yo, you need to use them. So let's go over the actual list. We're gonna start off with the 83 season. The first one is the Philadelphia 76ers. Look, this NBA team that is championship level of Dr. J 90 overall and Moses Malone 95 overall. You're gonna want to use this team on how broken they are. Plus you have Maurice Cheeks and Bobby Jones, the elite defender. No wonder this team is so popular and won an NBA championship, because they are stacked. It is insane. I would absolutely recommend, of all the teams, this is probably the first one you're going to want to use. The next team is the 83 San Antonio Spurs. Listen, I'm a big person when it comes to making sure that all-time greats get a team in 2K. Like, for example, George Gervin does not have a team represented in 2K that you can use until now. The 1983 San Antonio Spurs were really damn good, with George Gervin as a 91 overall, and you had a teammate of Artis Gilmore 85 overall. Plus you had Johnny Moore, who was a great playmaker. This team is going to be fun to use. I mean, George Gervin alone hitting finger roll after insane midi, and then Artis Gilmore dominating under the basket. Why would you not want to use this team? It's always important to get the Iceman have his own team, and they made sure they updated his face scan. I think this is a W by 2K. You would absolutely want to use this team for sure. The next team is the 83 Suns. The Suns are probably the most underrated franchise in NBA history, and this kind of goes to show you why. Look, you have 88 overall Walter Davis. You didn't even know he was that good rating-wise until now, did you? The Suns were pretty good in the 80s and 90s with Larry Nance on this team, with Maurice Lucas, James Edwards in the 80 overall club. You got 4 players in the 80 overall club, 3 of them in the high 80 overall club, and you had Kyle Macy as point guard, who wasn't bad, and you have yourself a really solid team. And you don't even really think about it, but everyone's so good, you need to try this team out, especially with Larry Nance being able to dunk so well. It's going to be a fun team to use for sure. At number 4, it is the 83 SUPERSONICS. Really look at this team. They're stacked top to bottom with Jack Sigma as your center. Great player, NBA champion. You have Tom Chambers, great dunker, great player to use. David Thompson, like the great David Thompson who used to be on the Nuggets, is on the SUPERSONICS and is broken. You have Fred Brown, who was a very good player for many years, and Gus Williams, 85 overall Gus Williams. Everyone on this team, this is a team that had recently won an NBA championship. You would absolutely want to use the SUPERSONICS team. There's not enough SUPERSONICS teams that are respected. You gotta use this one. Up next is the 1983 Clippers with Norm Nixon in his prime, Terry Cummings, and older Bill Walton with James Donaldson. This is a Bill Walton that was an MVP, right? He was a little past his prime, but you had MVP level Bill Walton. You had James Donaldson, who was one of the great Mavericks players. You have Terry Cummings, who's been good on so many different teams, and Norm Nixon, who you never really get to see his prime until here on the Clippers, with Ricky Pierce on this team as well. It's a super fun team. They didn't do great at all in the regular season, but like in terms of talent, that's a super fun team to use. The Mavericks, I think, are really important because this Mavericks team, like these players, ended up going to a conference finals and did a really good job. Mark Aguirre and Rolando Blackman in their prime were scary. I mean, in their prime, Rolando Blackman was also a 90 overall level player. And then Brad Davis was an 80 overall, and then really good bench players and starters. Like this team, the Mavericks literally only have one historic team that are remembered, and that's like the championship level Mavericks with, you know, you could also include the Steve Nash ones with Michael Finley. But like In terms of like greatness, you think of Dirk Nowitzki Mavericks and that's it, but we forget that Mark Aguirre and Rolando Blackman were really significant in NBA history with the Mavericks, and they never had a team to like represent them until now. And finally, the Nuggets. Kind of the same thing I said with George Gervin. I feel the same way with Alex English. This was a player that was averaging 30 points per game for years, okay? You never have an NBA team that representing of the Nuggets and Alex English until now. And this team was good with Kiki Vandeweghe and Dan Eisel. It was a stacked team. And maybe not the most fun team, but you do got to represent the good players back in the day. Now we got to check out the 90s. First up, the 1991 Philadelphia 76ers. People forget this team actually was pretty damn good in the regular season. They're one of the best teams in the East. Hersey Hawkins was an amazing player that year, point guard, 85 overall. But you also have Manute Bol on this team. Tell me that wouldn't be super fun to use Manute Bol, 7'7" Manute Bol in this game, while also playing as Hersey Hawkins as a point guard. It is a pick and roll nightmare for any friend that you're gonna play with this team. It's super fun, super fun. At number 9, it is the 1991 Bucks. Moses Malone was way past his prime, but way past his prime, Moses Malone was still better than most of the NBA. With Frank Bukowski, Jay Humphries, Dale Ellis on this team, you gotta admit that using a Moses Malone with Dale Ellis, both good players at the time, would be fun no matter what. This 91 Celtics team is so cool. An older Larry Bird, but still was very good even though he was injured. Robert Parrish was still on the team. Kevin McHale was still on the team. But then you also have Reggie Lewis. It is such a good roster. Reggie Lewis as the second best player next to Larry Bird. You have so many weapons. You can do so many things with this team that it is super fun and underrated. And they made sure to make the correct face scan for Larry Bird when he was older. This is a W. The 1991 Spurs. The same thing I said about the George Gervin Spurs, I feel about David Robinson. We don't have a prime David Robinson team. We have the David Robinson teams when he was with Tim Duncan, winning NBA championships, but he was past his prime already. In 1991, he was leading teams to conference finals with Terry Cummings and Sean Elliott, while he was a 94 overall, one of the highest rated centers ever. This dude was dropping 70-point games. David Robinson was an issue in the NBA, one of the most jacked players of all time. I am so glad they added him into this game with his best team. The 91 Lakers, should I say more, with a team of Byron Scott in his prime dropping 20 a game. You got James Worthy, 89 overall, Sam Perkins, and young Vlade Divac, while you have Magic Johnson off the bench. This is a video game team. No wonder they went to the NBA Finals this year and lost to the Bulls. They were so good. Staying with the underrated franchise of the Phoenix Suns, we have Kevin Johnson, 84 overall. Somehow Jeff Hornacek is the best player at 85, Dan Marley 85, and Tom Chambers 84. This is probably one of the funner teams to use. Kevin Johnson and Tom Chambers dunking on anybody, Dan Marley clamping, and Jeff Hornacek hitting every three. Tell me this team would be fun. This team was very successful, and no one ever talked about the Phoenix Suns back then, but they were very successful with so many good players. You had to try it out. And now to finish it off, we're gonna go to the 2000s era. First up, we have the Boston Celtics of 2002. This team is Paul Pierce, not in his prime, but still very good. And then Antoine Walker in his prime. Sure, the rest of the team isn't necessarily very good, but Paul Pierce and Antoine Walker just going crazy, hitting every shot. This is a team that went to a conference finals for a reason. They were both crazy good in their primes. And people forget how good Paul Pierce was even before the super team. The 2002 Clippers are hella underrated. Andre Miller, one of the greatest playmakers of all time. Corey Maggette was hitting dumb video game shots. Lamar Odom was very good. You had Elton Brand, who was amazing these years. And then you also had Michael Olowokandi, who, listen, wasn't necessarily good, but he was a high draft pick and was very famous. And you have my favorite Clippers jersey of all time. All on one team. This team would be so fun to use. I really suggest you check this one out because everybody's hitting the dumbest shots on this team. One of the coolest teams to use in 2K. It is the White Chocolate Grizzlies with Pau Gasol as a rookie. Ooh, look at this team, bro. Drew Gooden, Pau Gasol, Jason Williams in his prime, and then Shane Battier, who's also very good. Look, this team didn't do very good regular season wise, but you have the old Grizzlies colors, but now in Memphis, you have Pau Gasol, White Chocolate doing crazy stuff. You gotta try this team out because it was honestly low-key very good. Speaking of really good, the Hornets. This was like the 4th best team in the East. You had Baron Davis and Jamal Mashburn going crazy. Everyone on the starting lineups an 80 overall with David Wesley, PJ Brown, Jamal McGlory. Everybody here was good. People forget about the New Orleans Hornets and how good they were for a couple years. Baron Davis dunking on everybody. David Wesley hitting shots. Jamal Mashburn hitting shots. PJ Brown and Jamal McGlory rebounding. Like, it's such a good team. You need to check them out. This team I've already talked about a good amount, but we were really excited about it when they announced it. The Michael Jordan 2002 Wizards with Larry Hughes, which people forget Larry Hughes was a 20-point per game scorer for a couple years. Michael Jordan still getting 30-point games. Jerry Stackhouse, we know how good he is. With Christian Laettner, who was good for a couple years. And you have Brendan Hayward. I do think, I want to see who's on the bench on this team, because you should have some players. You have Brian Russell, Tyronn Lue's on this team. You know, you have Eaton Thomas, Charles Oakley's on this team, Jared Jeffries. You definitely got some people here, even Brian Cardinal. There's definitely some players on this team that's interesting, but yeah, this Michael Jordan-led team was never very good, but they had some talent here and there, and they're fun to use. The 2002 Bucks are a gimme. With, look, you get prime Ray Allen. Well, close to prime Ray Allen. You know, dropping video game numbers, dunking on people. Like, we forget how good athletic Jesus Shuttlesworth was. You know what I mean? Michael Redd was on this team. Tim Thomas was good. Sam Cassell was good. This isn't the one with Glenn Robinson, which they went to the conference finals, but this was still a very good team and deserves to be in 2K. The final team is the 2002 Magic roster. I know this team isn't necessarily great, but you got Jacques Vaughn, right? Mike Miller, a pretty good shooter. Sean Kemp at center at 73 overall. So not great players, but all being carried by Tracy McGrady, having to go off, dropping like 35 a game. This Tracy McGrady was so fun and so crazy. Look, I mean, if there's anyone else on the bench maybe that are interesting to use, maybe Darrell Armstrong and Grant Hill's off the bench, this team could be low-key fun. I'm going to try this team out just to end the video off because, God, like, this team was not very good, right? Obviously. But the idea of using maybe like Grant Hill off the bench, Darrell Armstrong as your starting point guard, you know, the starters don't look that bad anymore. There's no one really else to use though. Maybe Horace Grant, old Horace Grant, but no. We're gonna have a starting lineup of Darrell Armstrong, Tracy, Mike Miller, and Grant Hill with Sean Kemp. It's a very small ball lineup, but I want to try them out just for fun. You gotta admit though, these rosters, they really hit it out of the park. Look at the graphics. I already told you guys how cool the graphics are in my other video, but the idea of being able to use the Tracy McGrady 36 point per game like player in 2K, like, it's just so cool. Ooh, like Tracy hitting those kind of shots. Are you kidding me? Like, and this is on All-Stars, so it's not like that was like a free rookie difficulty shot, and he made it anyways because he was that good in his prime. It's crazy. Like, just imagine playing with your friend, pulling out Tracy McGrady and just dropping like 50 on him. It's so cool. With Mike Miller too, so you can still pass to some people that can hit shots. Sean Kemp at least can get a dunk here and there. Why is Sam Cassell wide open? It just seems so cool and fun. I definitely suggest all of you guys check these rosters out because I'm so happy that they added them. You got crippled injury Grant Hill, giving it to Tracy, going for the poster. Ah, my gosh, this is so cool, man. I'm so happy with this. 2K, this is an absolute W for adding this one. I just want to go for a 3 with Tracy, and that's at the end of the video off. But you gotta try these teams out, dude. They're so broken. Gonna do one Tracy McGrady 3 attempts. Bang! Oh, that was green too with the Agent 3 on gold. Nah, Tracy's broken, bro. Okay, guys, that is my recommended list of which teams you should check out. Let me know your opinions in the comments below of which one's your favorite. And if you like this channel, please give it a sub. I'll see you guys next time.